Okay friends, so you are watching the lesson on 3.3, multiplying and dividing inequalities. You should label your notes, what you see on the screen, as well as have page 66 out from your RPJ. Alright, we're going to start with this first example of 3x is less than or equal to 6, and we're going to solve this. So we are going to use inverse. So I see here that we have 3x, which means multiply. So the inverse of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. So x is less than or equal to 2. So here, if I'm going to make my number line, as a reminder, I want 3 points on your number line. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. Because it's less than or equal to, I am going to do a filled in circle above 2, shaded to the left. So let's try this one now. I have x over 2 is greater than or equal to 1. Here I see division. The inverse of division is multiplication. So I am going to multiply by 2 over 1, or just 2. So I get x is greater than or equal to 2. Again, I'm going to make my number line, 3 points on my number line. I am again going to use a filled in circle. This time I'm shading to the right. Okay, I want to look at page 65 in your RPJ. Oh, 65? I mean 66. This should be on page 66, I believe. And we're looking at, to fill in this table, it's B, where it says negative 2x, and we are going to fill in these values up here for x and then solve. So for this first one, I'm going to do negative 2 times negative 5, and that gives me 10. So just like we did at the beginning of the week, is that greater than 4? Yes. So this works. So now I'm going to try the next one. Negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. 8 is greater than or equal to 4. Yes. Go ahead and fill in the rest of the table. So this is what you should have gotten. I got yes when I plugged in negative 3, and no for when I plugged in negative 2 through negative 1. So if I look here, these numbers on the left are my solution. So I want to pick which graph matches this, which graph matches the initial inequality. And it ends up being the second one, the one to the right. Now if I look at that, my inequality symbol is pointing to the right, but this is filled in to the left. So here is a special rule. When we have negative 2x is greater than 4, just like we did before when we divided by negative 2, we would get x. I'm going to have some inequality, but I'm going to have negative 2. Because I want these values here, you need to flip your sign. So let's write this, and I would put it both in your notes and on your RPJ. Flip the sign, the inequality sign, when divide by a negative number. That is going to be super important. So let's try the same idea for this one, and this is I believe letter D, where it says x over negative 3 is less than 2/3. So again, I want to plug in a value. So I'm going to plug in negative 5 over negative 3. And that's the same thing as 5/3. Is 5/3 less than 2/3? No. So now I'm going to try -4 over -3, and that's the same thing as 4/3 is less than 2/3. Again, that's a no. You take a minute and finish filling in this table. All right, so this is what I got. I had both -3 and -2 were both no's. And then when I got to -1, 0, and 1, those all were yeses because they were true. So if I look at this original problem, x divided by -3 is less than 2/3. I would multiply by -3 on both sides, or -3 over 1. So we get x. And if I look over on this right side, these 3's both cancel out, and it becomes x is something to -2. Go back and let's figure out which graph matches. Well, these values are all yeses. I see -1, 0, and 1 graphed in the first one, so it's shaded to the right, which means my arrow needs to point to the right. So this is again, and I would write this down on your notes and in your RPJ. When multiplying by a negative number, flip the inequality sign. And this is going to be true every time this happens. So let's practice this. I want you to look at these 4, and you don't need to solve them, but I want you to figure out which signs would flip and tell me why. So you should have said that C and D both flip, because in C I would be multiplying by -2, and in D I would be multiplying by a -5. Both A and B stay the same because you are not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So let's practice this a little bit before you start your homework. All right, so for number 1, it says to solve the inequality, graph the solution. So in number 1, I have A divided by 2 is less than 4. So I'm going to show work. I got to show evidence of how I come up with my answer. I am going to multiply both sides by 2, and I get A is less than 8. I do not flip the sign because I did not multiply by a negative. And if I go to make my number line, I have 7, 8, and 9. I'm doing an open circle and shading to the left. All right, you go ahead and try number 2. So you should have multiplied both sides by 7. And I get n is greater than or equal to -7. I do not flip the sign because I did not multiply by a negative number. So my graph looks like this. I'm going to have a closed circle shaded to the right. And the last one, it says -6.4 is greater than or equal to W over 5. Now remember, we talked on Tuesday, the variable needs to be on the left side in order to graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this as W over 5 is less than or equal to -6.4. So that way my variable is on the left. Then I'm going to multiply by 5, and I get W is less than or equal to negative 3.2. I did not flip the sign when I multiplied because it was not by a negative number. Oh, I did that wrong. That should be 32, not 3.2. Ignore that decimal. So then when I make my number line, 31, 32, 33, I have a closed circle shaded to the left. So on this next slide, I am going to give you 3 more. I want you to pause the video, try them, and then compare your answers to mine. Okay, go ahead and try these and see what you get. Okay, here are the answers that I got for 4, 5, and 6. Number 6, I started off with my flip to get my variable of Q on the left side, and then I divided by 1.5. In none of these examples did I flip my sign because I did not divide by a negative number. I would like for you to try 2 more and then you're done. I would like you to try negative 5x is greater than or equal to 15. So here we're dividing by a negative 5. Because I'm dividing by that negative, I get x is less than or equal to negative 3. The last one I want you to try is k over negative 2 is greater than 7. So I'm going to multiply by negative 2 on both sides. So I get k is less than, because I multiplied by a negative, 14. K is less than negative 14. So your homework is going to have a combination of multiplication and division. Make sure you look for those negatives. So once you have your notes completed, you can go ahead, get started on your homework from Big Ideas. You may do it right off of Big Ideas. As a reminder, I need you to show work because if you get under a 70%, I want to see that. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.